In the heart of the nation where laughter's the key, Natch has the podcast, join the revelry, taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite, let the Nat Chat begin. Nat Chat where the laughter's free, spinning tales about politics with positivity.
It's been a while, I know. But if I'm going to produce a podcast, I want the quality to be something you actually want to listen to. So I'm not going to rush it. And to be honest, I get kind of busy in this job. I wish I had 4 hours a week to produce a weekly episode, but the reality is I just don't. So I'll dish them up when I get time. However, I couldn't put this one off anymore. This was actually supposed to be a very special Olympic edition with the only Olympian in Victorian Parliament, Sam Groth. And technically, I guess it still is, seeing we're in the first week of the Paris Paralympics. We also recorded this well before Piers and Ebden won gold in doubles, so there's no discussion on that. Sorry, it's not a omission on purpose. What we do talk about, though, is his world record, inside the Olympic Village, what sport has offered Sam, and we ask some of your questions as well. There's even a little bit in there where Sam gets stumped and goes silent. And I've never seen that before. Enjoy this episode of Nat Chat with Olympian, world record holder and Liberal member for Nepean, Sam Groth.
Would people know who I'm talking to? Do you think?
They may,
No?
depending on your audience.
Nationals audience. Sam Groth, Olympian and world record holder. Can we start there?
You can, absolutely.
I'm going to.
It's nice.
What do you mean it's nice?
Nice to be the best in the world at something.
Yeah, it's a legitimate world record though.
Absolutely.
Is it?
Yeah, you've got your
Was it
computer.
in-
Look up Guinness
No,
World Records.
Yeah, I know it's listed, but
Well,
there's
it's-
many that would argue that given where it was,
South Korea, one of the technological capitals of the world.
yeah, but what about, there's a lot of arguments, meteorological, I can't even say that word, about the atmosphere that you were carried a little bit. True or false?
Measured off the racket in tennis, not through the air. So they take the measurement off the racket.
Actually, do they? That's interesting.
Yeah, they do. So that's where they, by the time the ball actually, here's a bit of, whatever you want to call it. By the time the ball gets to
I don't know what you're
the
talking
returner at the other end, at 200 odd kilometre hour serve slowed down to sort of 50 or 60 kilometres an hour by the time it actually gets there. It does all its travel in the first half.
So yours is what, 260 something?
263.
So what would it have slowed down to?
Don't know. It was an ace.
Jesus, okay. All right, cool, great.
No, good to have a chat. Good to have a chat.
You know what? It's actually, as much as I might hang it on you most of the time, you're an Olympian and you've played for Australia and you got to 53 in the world in your craft. So there's got to be a little bit of respect there, as hard as it is for me to say that.
No, I appreciate that. Look, no, I'm very, very proud of what I did as a tennis player. I wasn't, and happy to say it, the most talented guy going around. I grew up in the country, very relatable to probably a lot of your listeners on Nat Chat, but, grew up on the Murray and I just worked my bloody ass off. I worked very, very hard, understood the things that I did well and the things that I didn't, and was able to maximise, the talent that I had.
So, and I talk about this a lot with sports enthusiasts because Michael Jordan always used to say, it doesn't matter how much talent you've got, it's your work rate, right?
Yeah.
And if you're first to training, last to leave, and you put in the work, do you think then, given that you admit that you weren't the most talented tennis player, do you think then anyone could call themselves an Olympic hopeful? And by anyone, I mean anyone with a bit of ability.
Yeah, so I think that's, so yes.
Because you don't even have to sign a form. I could call myself an Olympic hopeful.
You could. I'll let you be the judge of that, listeners. But look, there is obviously a talent element. Now, when I say I wasn't the most talented, it's probably in relation to, the guys at the very top that I was competing against. Roger Federer was bloody talented. Rafa Nadal is talented.
You took Federer to 4 sets though. We'll get back to that later. It's on my list.
Yeah, but these guys at the very, very top that I played against, yes, they're more talented, but there is a level of talent. But people always said, Rafa works so hard. Yes, but I wouldn't be convinced that those guys at the top work any harder than a guy at 50 or a guy at 100. And once you get to that level, everyone is working hard. Everyone knows the standard at which you have to train. Being able to push yourself through certain pain barriers is a talent in itself to be able to go that extra little bit. But everyone within, especially now in sport, I think sport over time has become more and more professional. The way you train, the way you recover, everything that you've got to do, what you eat. You don't see the AFL players now, blowing out after every single game, beers in the change rooms like the guys
They used to.
Yeah.
When I was at nightclubs in Melbourne, they certainly used to.
But sport has changed.
Yeah.
Across the board, it has become so much more professional. So I wouldn't say that anybody competing at the elite level really, yes, there's variances in how hard they train, but it is small. The variances are small. Yes, the guys at the top probably have a degree of talent, and some of that talent comes with how hard they're actually able to push themselves in training. But yeah, talent is all relative, I think, as well.
So when you talk about pain barriers and being able to push yourself through,
yes,
and I'm not going to talk about politics too much at the moment because that's the proviso that we do this.
Yes.
But do you reckon that kind of mental capacity to be able to push through hard things has prepared you for this next phase of your life?
I think it's prepared me for a lot. I know in the US they do it probably far better than we do sometimes here because they have the whole college sports system. Top companies in the US, when they're recruiting out of college, look so highly at those athletes that have played Division 1 sport because of some of the attributes that it actually gives you. It's hard work, it's discipline, it's dealing with adversity, winning and losing.
Resilience, grit.
But we have this perception in Australia now, and I struggle with it a little bit, that, we don't score in kids' sport. And, yes, we don't want it to be over the top with kids. We want it to be competitive so they understand, because life, there is winners and losers to a degree in things. People will go for a job interview and not get it and have to understand that there are things they maybe could have done differently or how hard they worked or a skill they needed to improve. Like winning and losing is not only related to sport, but I think what you can take out of sport and apply to the rest of your life is probably looked a lot more highly at in somewhere like the US because of their college sports system and top business than we do in Australia.
I agree. Although sometimes I think in country football at the moment, a mercy rule even in the resis would help.
And so you asked me about how it prepared me for this. I had plenty of ups and downs in my tennis career. I've been very public about speaking about a lot of them, time away from the sport and going back and playing suburban footy and coming back, injuries and, you finish a career at the age of 30, you have to learn a lot about yourself, about what you're going to do about life pretty quickly. But I think that day in, day out, as a tennis player, you literally compete almost every day of the year. And every single tournament, unless you win, depending on the size of the draw, 32, 64, 128 guys turn up to every week. Everybody loses except for one person.
Yeah.
You can have a really good career in tennis, a great career, and never go a week without losing. And it is a really strange concept to probably think about and put to people. But I won 2 doubles titles on tour. I got to 50 in the world. I won challenger events, but on the ATP tour, I never had a week where, and it sounds terrible, but I never had a week where I didn't walk away a loser, even in my best weeks.
Is that why you're so driven to win now? Do you think?
I think I was always driven to win then too.
Yeah, I know. But what does that do to your psyche? Like if you are never winning and you're always getting like...
It doesn't mean you're always... You. It's the resilience. You put it out and you get to the next tournament, you work your guts out and you go out and you never walk out thinking you're going to lose.
Obviously.
But it's just... A lot of people, even probably within the sport, never would really think about that, But it's a different world to be a part of.
Do you consider yourself a resilient person then?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Can we go back to growing up and your journey to the Olympics?
Yes.
You left home at 16.
Yep.
To go to the did you go to the Institute of Sport?
So I moved to Melbourne initially from Albury.
Yeah.
To train with Tennis Australia. Yep. So with their targeted athlete program. Now I wasn't a part of the program. I was invited to pay to train on with those kids.
Oh, so you gate crashed.
They let me come to look, but it was an opportunity. I wasn't chosen, but they thought there was maybe something there. They'd give me an opportunity to at least train on.
Okay. X factor.
I missed out on. I don't know what it was. I think they had to. I made the final of the Australian Championships in the under-16. I don't think they were left with much choice to have a go on the
hang
side.
on, just slowly, because I say this all the time, and I use my my relationship with you to the nth degree in Mildura and say all the time that my friend and colleague Sam Groth won his first pro tournament in Mildura. You did, didn't you?
I did.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that 16 under Australian grass court championships was actually in Mildura as well. So I made the final of the Australian championships when I was 16 in Mildura.
Yep.
Invited by Tennis Australia to come down and train with their program and with the Victorian Institute of Sport. I wasn't given a scholarship there, but I was training on as well. Got overlooked for a scholarship at the VIS at the start of the next year in January, and then went and won 2 Australian junior tournaments, like international junior tournaments, but here in Australia, won both weeks back to back. And they very quickly gave me a scholarship. So I missed out for the first month, and then I was invited into the VIS on a full scholarship.
Oh, on a full, because I was going to ask, how did you afford all that at your age? And you always talk about how you don't come from money.
No.
So how do you afford that?
Huge sacrifice from my parents.
Yeah.
They sold up a house in Albury and then rented when they came to Melbourne, never bought a house again.
Yeah, right. That is a huge sacrifice.
It is huge. And then the VIS scholarship was more, it's a training-based scholarship, so it didn't include travel and those sort of things.
Yeah, okay.
So that sort of came from my parents, and I had 1 or 2 sort of little supporters, people who were prepared just to put a little bit of money in to help. And then a year after, I got in the Australian Institute of Sport, so I did get an AIS scholarship.
Yep.
And that was a pro tour program that was funded, so it did help with our travel, help with our coaching, but had a prize money payback element. So, if you shot up and did really well, the idea was that you were able to pay your scholarship back, so up to an equivalent amount. So then that money could support another athlete.
Like a HEX debt.
Yeah. I mean, that's the situation where we're on a prize money payback system with the Australian Institute of Sport tennis program, because in the end, if you get to the point where you are making good money or making enough money to support yourself, I'm fully supportive of that money then going to an athlete that does need it. So we were under that program where once you start doing well, then you're supporting the next generation.
Well, that's how it's sustainable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's great. So let's talk about, we'll jump forward because I know that you're limited for time. Let's go to 2015,
yes,
which is a year of your career, and I've said this to you before. I've deleted it from social media, but I remember it very, very well because I just had and I've followed sport my entire life, but I remember 2015 very, very well because I had my first son in the February, and it was a long, hot summer.
Yep.
So it was a year I remember very, very well. You won the Newcombe medal that year.
I did. 2015 was a good and a bad year. So 2014, I'd finished the year well. I'd broken top 100 for the first time. I'd qualified at the French Open and Wimbledon. I was starting to really make waves. I got into the US Open. I was top 100. I played Davis Cup for the first time. So I came into 2015 like really feeling like I was starting to go well. Made third round at the Australian Open. We made the semis at Davis Cup. Third round at Wimbledon.
That was when you took Roger Federer to 4 sets that year.
I did.
I remember that match.
And the other thing, I was playing doubles at the same time too. So I'd really made myself in the Australian Davis Cup team sort of a needed commodity by, being sort of the second or third ranked singles guy, but the top part of the top doubles pair. So when you've got limited guys you can choose from, 4 players for 5 matches over 3 days in Davis Cup, that ability for someone to play singles and doubles is huge for the team. So I sort of made myself that guy in 14, 15, 16. But 2015, I was playing a lot. You look after yourself, but my foot just blew out on me. I ended up having foot surgery from about a week before Wimbledon until October. I had to go in sort of 5 minutes before every match. I get an injection in my foot just to be able to go on court.
Like painkilling injection?
Painkilling because I had a nerve problem and it just basically felt like someone had a hot knife sticking into my foot every time I put my shoes on. So I used to have to go into the doctor. I'd watch the match before, and as soon as match point was finished, I'd have done all my warm-up and everything, and I'd run into the doc. He'd have the syringes preloaded. He'd just smash it full of local anaesthetic so I couldn't feel my foot.
Full of local?
But as the year went on, they were having to do more and more and more local because the problem's getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
And I got to Tokyo. I had to win one match. I wanted to get top 50 that year, and I had to win sort of one match for the rest of the season. And, I couldn't necessarily train as hard because I didn't want to get injections to train. I didn't want to, so you're managing yourself. And I got to Tokyo and I had that problem. I was putting so much local anaesthetic into my foot that actually when I foot hit the court, I couldn't feel the ground. And so I got to the point where I just couldn't play. So I came home, I had foot surgery. I rushed back for 2016 because, I won the Newcombe medal. I'd built a pretty good profile through 2015. And when you play at the Australian Open, And when you have done well the year before, sponsors come on.
Yeah.
You become the face of a lot of things related to that tournament, and the opportunity commercially. I had to play the Australian Open, so I rushed back, but it sort of really put a massive big dent in my preparation for 2016, and I really struggled after that actually.
Well, 2016 you went to Rio to the Olympics.
Yes.
How was your foot then?
It was fine by then. It was never really the same. It was fine by then to the point where I was still playing well enough to make
To get the Olympics,
team.
yeah, that's what I mean.
But my focus through 2016 was to try to hang on to my ranking. I knew that I was struggling more than I had, but to hang on to my ranking so I could get in. I wanted to go to Rio, and I did, which is something I'm immensely proud of.
Yeah, as you should be.
It's a whirlwind memory. I got into the team about 4 days before the opening ceremony, 3 or 4 days before
Did
the
you
opening
really?
ceremony. Yeah.
That quickly?
So I was like the last guy to make the team across almost every sport.
So did you go to the opening ceremony?
I did. So as soon as I got in, the AOC accepted my nomination. We see it now with Paris. Athletes sort of get in at the last minute. It just happens. It's 64 players, 56 direct entry. It's tough to get in still from amateur tennis point of view. But I got in, raced down there. I think I had 2 days practice. I walked in the opening ceremony. We played the day after the opening ceremony for tennis. So it's a decision when you go down there because it does affect your performance going, 4 or 5 hours for an opening ceremony.
Yeah.
But,
4 or 5 hours?
It's long because you go for the preparation too. So they bus everyone out to where the venue is and they, bank all the people back and then you walk in order. So for us normally, Paris was different, but as Australia, you walk early because it's alphabetical order, so you're okay.
Yeah. Does that mean you're not standing up for the entire 4 or 5 hours?
Because unfortunately, if you're from, say, Zimbabwe, what they do is they bus them out early and they pack them all backwards from there. So they have to get there first and then wait for every other country to line up in front of them. So if you think like a holding area outside the stadium, they put the Zs all the way at the back, so they have to get there first, and then it's the X's and the W's and the T's
and
work
backwards.
So for us, it's normally okay, but in Paris, the teams that walk at the very end are the next hosts. So Australia is hosting in a couple of Olympics time. Yeah. So they're actually the third last country to walk. So the Australians had it a little bit more difficult in Paris.
Well, hey, while we're on Paris, what did you think of the opening ceremony?
They tried to do something very, very different. Part of the opening ceremony is about having all of the athletes there together as well, I think. The fact that you have every athlete, the best athletes in the world from every country in one stadium at the same time, to me is what made the opening ceremony special. I'm not saying it wasn't special and it won't be special for those athletes that was their first one or for the ones that were there. I just think it was different.
Yeah. Well, it was different. Yeah. I thought it was very French.
Yeah.
Very French. I appreciate it. I appreciated a lot of the elements. Opening ceremony in Rio, 2016, standing on your foot.
Yes.
That you've been injecting and having.
So once I had the nerve taken out of my foot, I can't feel half my foot anymore. So it was no longer.
Still?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I've actually got to get my other one done, unfortunately.
What, to even yourself up so you don't run around in circles?
It must be just something wrong with my anatomy.
Do you really want to open that door?
No, I don't, but I've got to get the other one taken out. I messaged my physio, who's been my physio since I was, for a long, long time, and I said, I know she's in Europe at the moment, and I said, when are you back? I've got to get my other foot done. And she was like, we knew one day it would probably come just because of,
Is it like a Morton's neuroma?
It's a Morton's neuroma. That's exactly what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
See? I know stuff.
Which, do you know what? Do you know who normally gets Morton's neuroma?
Yeah, old ladies.
Yeah, females in high-heeled shoes.
Yeah, I know. I know stuff. I know you don't think I know stuff, but I know stuff.
And it's because I've got stupidly high arches. That's
really?
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't wear high heels. But
I mean, you could.
No, but if you think about someone in a high heel and how the pressure it puts, that's what I get because of how high my arches are. So that's,
Yeah, right.
Yes.
Jeez, I'm not bad, am I?
No.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. All right, so you played the day after.
Yes.
Did you play doubles and singles at the Olympics?
No, so the Australian Federation...
Don't be guarded. This is just you and me having a chat.
The Australian Federation didn't nominate a second doubles team. They forgot to.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean they forgot to?
They just didn't. They didn't think the team was going to get in. So we had 3 singles players before I got in within the cut. But what they should have done is nominated a second team, but they just never on the nomination nominated a second team. We would have got a second team in. I would have played doubles as well, but they just never nominated.
Because you were arguably
I was better. I was 20. I got to 20 odd in the world in
Yeah.
doubles. A couple of Grand Slam semi-finals in doubles. Like, I won. Yeah, you can have that argument, but my better medal chance would have been in doubles for sure. 100%.
I would have thought so.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting because I've always wondered that.
Yeah. It was a weird time as well. People forget that Rio was right in the middle of all that Zika stuff.
Yeah, correct.
And so it was also a very strange place. A lot of internationals didn't travel to Rio because everyone was scared about having
Zika virus.
small-headed babies. It was causing like microcephaly or whatever that was. It became this. So a lot of people just didn't go. Like it didn't kill the atmosphere for me, but it was still very, very strange.
So let's talk about the atmosphere in the village.
Yes.
And I've put it out there to people what they want to know.
Yeah.
The media make the village out to be this big swingers party, whatever you want to call it. Hang on, first of all, let me clarify. Were you with your wife at this point?
Yes.
You would have been. Yeah, okay.
But I also want to say, you've got a lot of, good-looking people who are fit all in one place with, hormones running wild. But you've also got to remember a lot of them have waited 4 years to get their opportunity to compete. Yeah. So, for example, athletics is the second week. They were only arriving into the village a few days before they start to compete.
Yeah.
They've got to focus. And, of course, some athletes take advantage of it. They're for the experience, not for the not necessarily for the results. But as tennis players, where we're an anomaly as a sport is we have huge tournaments all the time. And I don't say that but I was out of there within sort of 3 or 4 days of losing because I had another tournament. Like it's about 4 or 5 weeks before the US Open. So they jam it, it's between Wimbledon and the US Open. We have other stuff to do. Yes, you hear all the stories and yes, I've heard plenty of them. But yeah,
that's such a political answer, Sam.
No, it's not.
That was a yes or no question.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, yes, it was. Is it the swingers party the media make it out to be? Yes or no?
I'm sure for some it is.
Okay, great.
No, but
that wasn't hard, was it?
No.
You should give the Premier some pointers.
I was clarifying also, the athletes are there also to perform. So the swimming is now pretty much done in Paris.
And do they hang around afterwards?
Well, because a lot of them, I've heard swimmers on there say, I'm not going to swim again until next year.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that longer break.
Until the World Championships.
In my sport, we don't have that, right? Like I'd play 35 tournaments a year.
But do you know whether the swimmers hang around and just party for another week and a half?
Yeah, some do for sure.
Yeah, okay. Kyle Chalmers
and I wouldn't be surprised if someone like McEwen ends up being our, flag bearer at the closing ceremony. She's probably our most successful Olympian now in terms of number of medals. So, there's other parts, once you're done competing, you get out and support the Aussies in other sports. There is the closing ceremony stuff. For a lot of them, if it is the last time you ever compete, the only time you ever compete, it might be your only one. You want to try to soak that up as well.
Yeah.
I do look back thinking, I was always pressing and I was trying to get back and get my ranking back and do all those things. Part of me always does look back and think I should have stuck around and, just dealt with the atmosphere a bit more and really soaked it up. But I also probably at the time didn't think it would be my only one.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say that because it wasn't long. It was only a few years after.
Oh, mid-2017 I knew I was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a shame, isn't it?
Yeah. Look, it's not. No, I don't look at anything as a shame.
Oh, no, I know. But I suppose it happens to everyone when there's significant events in your life and you go, shit, I didn't really...
No, I definitely didn't soak it up. I got out and watched the beach volleyball and the Aussies play basketball and the rugby sevens women when they won. Went to the gymnastics, went to the swimming. We went and with the other Aussie tennis team and you speak to other athletes. You go out and you enjoy this stuff.
Yeah.
But looking back now, did having one more tournament on the ATP tour or playing something the week after, was that worth? Now at the time probably was because I was trying to keep my ranking, but in terms of my life, would I wish I've stuck around for another 7 days? Yeah, probably.
But you couldn't.
But at the time you can't.
I was going to say you can't.
There's you can't.
Yeah. So it's not really even worth pondering on, really, is it? So you're a pro tennis player at that point, so you're making money in tournaments, whatever. There's a lot of amateur sports people in there.
Yes.
How on earth do they afford to go to the Olympics?
Yeah,
Because it's tough. Like, you look at Harry Garside, for example, amateur boxer.
well, the swimmers are the one, right? They're some of our highest profile athletes.
Yeah.
But they all work full-time jobs.
Yeah, correct.
And this whole idea, swimming, I'm now going to become a swimmer. I don't want to go up and swim at 4:35 in the morning. They don't really have another choice.
Exactly. When else are you going to do it?
And this, not to sound lazy, but as a tennis player, you have all day to get your training in. There was no need for me to train at 7 a.m. other than for a discipline sort of a thing to. If I trained at 7 or I trained at 10, it was my full-time job. It didn't really make a difference. For them, they have to do it because they've got to go to work.
Which is just mind-boggling to me. Like, we're the best swimmers in the world, and they just don't.
And they're probably the ones, though, that are making more. Like, they're probably ones with some more of the endorsement deals and those sort of things. So they're not even the ones from sports that you don't
Well,
see.
Arnie's the face of Harvey Norman, really, isn't it? Have you still got any endorsements going?
No.
Haven't you? No. Are you not allowed to in your current role?
No. Well, you can. You're allowed. I mean, you fill in the same forms I do in this job.
Yeah.
You're allowed to declare other incomes. I actually just genuinely, and I've been asked this a lot. So even some of our colleagues on both sides of the chamber have said, "Did you think about doing any stuff around the Olympics?"
Or the Australian Open.
My genuine opinion is when you take this job on, there is so much you could be doing, and there's so many events we go to, but there's so many we also miss. You just can't be everywhere. I don't think it presents the right image if I am off working on something else when I've been elected by, and I'm not trying to give you a political answer, but when I've been elected by the people in Nepean and I can't physically be everywhere anyway, should I be off doing other work for myself? That's how I look at it.
That's a good answer.
But it's actually genuinely how I look at it. Like, I could go and do it, but I don't think it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. And I'm sure you're not the only one that's been asked to, and I remember asking you very early on, are you still going to do any commentary stuff around the Australian Open last year? Because that was good. And I enjoy commentary. Like, I love listening to Thorpe commentate the swimming because he's very technical. And I found your commentary and Leighton's commentary technical, which is handy for those of us that
I have no idea what's going on.
I've got no idea. And I have played a lot of sport. I took tennis lessons as a kid. I am useless on a tennis court.
No, and look, I still, I popped onto the panel a couple of times, when I was out there. I still try to get along to the tennis. There's a couple of days specific for men and women who've played Davis Cup or Fed Cup.
Yep.
I've got my tourism, sport and events shadow portfolio.
That comes in handy.
It fits well because I sort of know my portfolio. I've had an upbringing in a lot of it, so I still get the opportunity to get along to a lot of these things in that capacity. But it's not. I'm not there to commentate anymore.
No, it's a good answer. It's a strong answer, Stan.
Yeah.
I like it. Can we talk about this year's team? And I asked you about this earlier too. Our first singles match, Matthew against the Joker. What? Yes. Really?
It's hard.
What the hell?
So here's the thing though. So Matt was there to play doubles.
Yeah.
And because there is a cutoff for the timeline, if someone gets injured, they can't just fly someone in from somewhere else in the world to play. There's no qualifying tournament. There's not people there waiting who've lost in qualies who can move in. So you actually see it at a lot of Olympics where you get a guy who's there for doubles that may never play singles at all, may never have played singles, but they're the next highest ranked guy because then it'll go to the doubles list who gets in. So Matt was a great singles player in his own right. He was top 100, really, really good. But Matty hasn't played singles for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, of course, when it pops up, Matt's fit. Like, he's scary fit. Like, he's quick. There's some doubles guys who certainly couldn't go out and play singles. Matt can because he's at least, still in really good shape.
Freak,
he's like, but yeah, I mean, look, Matt would not be putting his hand up to play singles any other time other than when the opportunity came to play at the Olympics because he was there and that's how they fill the draw.
And because if you're asked to play for your country, you don't say no, do you? No. When you're in Rio, who was the most interesting person that you got to have a chat with?
I don't know. That's who was the most interesting person I had a chat with. It's really funny.
Oh, stop it. There's silence. I've stumped you.
That's very, very.
Oh my goodness.
Because I never saw it as a of course, you see some of the superstar athletes, and they walk past, and you
high profile, but not necessarily interesting.
But genuinely, like the Aussie team is just like any other group of Aussie people together. Like you sit in the lounge, you watch the other sports, you have no one's drinking early in the thing, but you sit around, you have a coffee, you have breakfast. Like it just becomes like a big group of mates all there, supporting each other. The thing that stood out for me in terms of performance when I was there was I watched Katie Ledecky win in the pool, and it was almost like what we saw in Paris. Like she was miles ahead, and I remember sitting in the stands and I was like, she is a freak. Like she was genuinely a freak.
I know her coach.
Yeah,
she's a Stanford girl. She's only 27 still. Yeah. I thought she's been around for so long.
Yeah, I remember just sitting there and she was so far ahead, and I was like, what is going on? And, I'd been lucky when I was travelling. I'd been to NBA games and I'd seen some of those athletes compete. But, yeah, that was outrageous.
Last one, really quickly.
Yes.
And these are ones that have come off Instagram.
Yes.
Best handshake in tennis?
I have no idea.
You could say yourself. You've got a decent handshake.
I do. Not like Marty Cameron, who crushes my hand every time.
Yeah, but he's a plumber.
Oh, my God. When I just came into Parliament, I was like, is this guy trying to really assert his dominance over me or what?
He probably was to a certain extent.
I think he's backed it off a little bit in recent times.
He probably was.
No, I don't. No, there's no one that stands out like that. For example, like
What about worst then? Because you know my opinion on this.
Yeah,
Do you agree with my opinion on this?
I've never had that experience.
Really?
No, and I don't like. You have some terrible handshakes with opponents. When you've maybe had a match that's got heated and hasn't gone down so well, or something like that.
Are they actually genuine handshakes there, or are they just more of a courtesy?
Oh, look, even if you play one of the other Aussies, if they win, you try to say, well done, mate. And, and part of you means it, but you're still, shattered every time you lose these matches.
Yeah, of course.
But you got to remember, it's all on camera. Everyone sees it, and it's when the ones go bad, that's the one that gets the attention.
All the ones where you break a racket.
I'm also of the opinion. I'm going to ignore.
I was going to say, and I haven't brought it up.
You can
until now.
I'll send you the video. You can cut it into any videos.
Actually, that's a really good idea.
You play hard, you play fair, and at the end, if the other person is too good, you look them in the eye, you shake their hand, you say too good. And I expect that from the opponent as well. It's the ones who don't, adhere to that sort of, sportsmanship that I just really don't get along with very well.
Fair enough. Yeah. It's good advice for the rest of your life too, yes. I would say, Grothy.
Who knows?
Thank you. I know you've got to get back to doing some real work, but I appreciate it. And
look, we can schedule another one of these down the path. Who knows where we both end up, Jade?
Well, you're a smart ass.
We're going to be here for a while.
No, but look, to be honest, you're an Olympian. You've got to have respect for everything that you've managed to do. And I know I get a bit defensive with those on the other side in there that hang it on you, and I get a little bit big sister-esque and defensive, but for good reason. I do hang it on, and I appreciate the support in that I do, but it was funny this week. They do hang it on me a bit. But I tell you, this week when it actually push came to shove and I walked in there with my blazer on they backed off pretty quick as well. And I don't say that. I think deep down and I think there is a respect, not for me, but for those people that have represented our country that are we are a passionate sporting nation. Yes, and those people that do get the opportunity to go to Olympic Games and become Olympians, we genuinely do support them. Take politics out of it. Well, there's not many of you, is there? No, how many? 4,315. Yeah, that's not many. Yeah. I know. No, it's not. And I'm not talking for those on the other side of the chamber this week, but I almost felt that this week a little bit from it's. Yeah, there is heckling, there is the stuff that goes on in here, but as a country, I think we genuinely get behind our athletes. Even after they're retired? Sometimes. Thank you, Grothy. Appreciate it. Yes, we're coalition colleagues, but taking work and politics out of it, I could pick Grothy's brain and experiences for hours. It's the things that go on behind the scenes that I think I and other mere mortals find fascinating about the Olympics and probably about professional sports in general, I think. One thing we can agree on is that sport, as in life, will teach you lessons, and some of those you may not want to learn, but they're important. There's an old saying, you can win or you can learn. I'd actually like to think you can do both.
Over the next couple of months, I'll be talking to Ben Ridley and Mark Thornton about real estate agents' opinion on land tax and what it's doing to their rental property listings. And we'll also be talking to some of those who have come out to say they're running in the upcoming council elections. Until then, if you need to contact my office, please do. Just hit the website jadebenham.com.au.
In the heart of the nation where laughter's the key, Natchat's the podcast, join the revelry, taking the Mickey with positive spin. Country folks unite, let the Natchat begin. Natchat where the laughter's free, spinning tales about politics with positivity.